Hello, and welcome to another episode of Easing the Badger. I'm Will.
I'm Alex.
I'm Flint. Episode 6.
Episode 6. We are covering chapters 18, 19, and 20. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I know
Yes.
we just said it a minute ago.
Yes, 18, 19, and 20, which puts us almost halfway.
Almost.
We're getting there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're getting there. Just a little shy of halfway. Exciting.
These are pretty action-packed chapters,
That
so
they are.
how about we just go ahead and jump right in?
Yeah, let's do it.
Alright, so I've got chapter 18. It's called The Camelin Road. The icon for this one is a really cool one, in my opinion. It represents Trollocs, and it's like three icons in one. The central one is like a bestial skull head with long horns coming off. And then the one on the left is like a trident, which apparently is a symbol of the Cobal Trollocs. And on the right is like an iron fist, like a gauntlet or something. And it represents the Daimon Trollocs. Really cool symbols.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the party has been traveling along the Camelin Road for a couple of days now, and Rand feels like he knows what's to come due to the many hours he spent as a child daydreaming over Master Alvir's map. On a lunch break on the third day since leaving Baerlon, Egwene complains that she used to like cheese, and mutters about there being no chance of a cup of hot tea, which causes Nynaeve to chime in about how flatwort tea and andalay root are best for fatigue, and seems to be directing her comments at Moiraine, who's just like, sure, I guess. Nynaeve goes to keep on listing herb facts when Lan shouts at Egwene, no tea, no fire. Do you want Trollocs? Because that's how you get Trollocs. Egwene is like, geez, I wasn't even asking. Let a girl complain once in a while. Perrin asks why they can't just cut across as the crow flies, since the Trollocs know they're on the road, and Nynaeve is about to say something, but Moiraine cuts her off, informing him that the hills of Abshare are far too treacherous and would slow them down tremendously to the point that when the road curves back around and they get on it again, they might just find the Trollocs waiting there for them. Nynaeve gives an exasperated sigh, leaving Rand wondering what her deal is. For the entire first day of travel, the Wisdom completely ignored the Aes Sedai, but ever since then she's been hounding Moiraine, trying to talk to her about herbs, while Moiraine gives her nooch. Lan emphasizes Moiraine's point by asking if they've seen any farms anywhere this morning. They haven't, because this is bumfuck nowhere, and the wilderness is too savage to traverse. There's not shit between Baerlon and Whitebridge, and they have to get to Whitebridge to be able to cross the Arenelle, lest they want to go all the way up to Saldea in the Borderlands. Tom snorts and says, what if they're already posted at Whitebridge waiting for us? But just then, a horn wails from the west. Lan's head whips around and stares, and Rand feels a chill as he involuntarily calculates that it's probably like 10 miles away. Which, like, as someone like me with zero spatial awareness, how the fuck do you even determine that? Lan responds to Tom's question with, nothing stops them, Cleeman. We just have to trust the light and luck. But now we know for damn sure they're behind us, so let's get moving. They all mount up and head out as they hear more horns sounding, and seemingly in response to each other. Lan is like BRB and steers Mandarb off toward the Trollocs. Moiraine says under her breath, the light go with you, last lord of the Seven Towers. But Rand hears, and when he looks around, he thinks Tom heard too, because he seems to be contemplating something as he chews the ends of his mustaches. Moiraine had them moving at a slow, steady trot as the horns kept getting louder, and Nynaeve is like, can't we go any faster? The Aes Sedai shook her head. And why do they let us know they are there? Perhaps so we will hurry on without thinking of what might be ahead. They kept chugging along as the horns got closer, and just as Rand thinks they've gotten as close as 5 miles away, here comes Land bursting around the hill behind them at a gallop. At least 3 fists of Trollocs, maybe 5, each led by a half-man, he said to Moiraine. Were you spotted? Egwene asked, and Nynaeve tries to say she's sure he wasn't because she knows how good he is, but Moiraine is like, will you listen? The man is trying to tell us that there could be as many as 500 Trollocs back there. That shut everyone up, and Lan added, they're closing on us. They will catch up in an hour or less. Half to herself, the Aes Sedai said, if they had that many before, why were they not used at Emond's Field? If they did not, how come they're here since? They are spread out to drive us before them, Lan said, with scouts quartering ahead of the main parties. Driving us toward what? Moiraine mused. As if to answer her, a horn sounded in the distance to the west, a long moan that was answered this time by others, all ahead of them. Moiraine stopped Aldeeb. The others followed her lead, Tom and the Emmons Field folk looking around fearfully. Horns cried out before them and behind. Rand thought they held a note of triumph. What do we do now? Nynaeve demanded angrily. Where do we go? All that is left is north or south, Moiraine said, more thinking aloud than answering the wisdom. To the south are the hills of Abshare, barren and dead, and the Terran with no way to cross and no traffic by boat. To the north we can reach the Arenelle before nightfall, and there will be a chance of a trader's boat, if the ice is broken at Meridon. There is a place the Trollocs will not go, Lan said, but Moiraine's head whipped around sharply. No. She motioned to the warder, and he put his head close to hers so their talk could not be overheard. The horns kept sounding, closer and closer, and the Trollocs were clearly trying to whip them into a panic. It was nearly successful by the time Moiraine decided, we go north, and led them off the road. The terrain was brutal, dead branches whipping them and vines snaring them as they passed, and they had to spend as much time or more going up as they did forward, despite Lan pressing them at a harder speed than they had used on the road. Lan mentioned that they were likely Trolloc scouts in the woods with them, and that they need to keep close to him for safety. Everywhere Rand looked, his eyes played tricks, turning trees into Trollocs. Then they topped the hill. Below them, just starting up the slope, marched Trollocs carrying poles tipped with great loops of rope or long hooks. Many Trollocs. The line stretched far to either side, the ends out of sight, but at its center, directly in front of Lan, a fade road. The Murdral seemed to hesitate as the humans appeared atop the hill, but in the next instant it produced a sword with the black blade Rand remembered so easily and waved it over his head. The line of Trollocs scrambled forward. Even before the Murdral moved, Lan's sword was in his hand. Stay with me, he cried, and Mandar plunged down the slope toward the Trollocs. For the 7 Towers, he shouted. Rand gulped and booted the Grey forward. The whole group of them streamed after the warder. He was surprised to find Tam's sword in his fist. Caught up by Lan's cry, he found his own. Manetheren! Manetheren! Perrin took it up. Manetheren! Manetheren! But Mat shouted, Karai on Kaldazar! Karai on Elisanda! Al Elisanda! The Fade and Lan locked into combat as the Trollocs swarmed around the other humans. Rand swung his sword like he was hacking at wood, searching for Egwene. Moiraine steered her white mare expertly, whipping her staff around and engulfing Trollocs in flames. Nynaeve and Egwene were at her heels, teeth bared and holding out belt knives that would be useless to them if a Trolloc came close enough to use them. Rand tried to turn Cloud toward them, but the horse was freaking the fuck out, would not respond no matter how hard he tugged at the reins. By this point, the Trollocs were scared of Moiraine, and a space opened up around the 3 women, but this didn't stop Moiraine from picking them off one by one. Rand almost got by a noose on a pole, but he cut it in half and slashed at the goat man wielding it. But then a hook caught his cloak at his shoulder and started yanking him from his saddle. He could see Perrin trying to wrest his axe back from one Trolloc, while another had him by the other arm and two more had him by the legs. Rand gets pulled out of his saddle, and the only thing keeping him from hitting the ground is his death grip on Cloud's reins. The horse reared and shrieked, but at that moment the pulling stopped. All of the Trollocs were suddenly wailing at the top of their lungs and grabbing their heads. They all fell to the ground around them, clawing at themselves, biting the ground, flailing. Then Rand looked up and saw the Murdral still upright in its saddle, sword waving about it, but with no head. "It won't die until nightfall," Tom shouted. "Not completely, or so I've heard." "Ride," Lan shouted. "This isn't all of them." For a wonder, Mat was the only one who had been unhorsed. Rand trotted toward him, but Mat tossed a noose away from him with a shudder, gathered his bow, and scrambled into his saddle unaided, though rubbing in his throat. They scrabbled up and over hills at an even faster pace, but Trollocs were still gaining on them. Rand looked back as they crested one hill and saw on the next hilltop behind them a swarm of Trollocs so thick that the land looked black, while at their head were three Murdral. Rand's booty hole puckered. The Murdral raised their swords and led a charge toward them all. Moiraine hopped off her horse, whipped out her Angreal, and raised her staff high before plunging it into the ground. Out from her, the ground began to moan and then shake, and then waves of earth rippled out from her, toppling Trollocs, burying them under trees. This was Aes Sedai work like the stories told, and Rand wished he were anywhere but here. Despite the raging ground below them, though, the Murdral remained unaffected and charged forward. Moiraine lifted her staff, and the earth stilled, but she was not done. She pointed to the hollow between the hills, and flame gouted from the ground, a fountain 20 feet high. She flung her arms wide, and the fire raced to the left and right as far as the eye could see, spreading into a wall separating humans and Trollocs. The heat made Rand put his hands in front of his face, even on the hilltop. The Murdral's black mounts, whatever strange powers they had, screamed at the fire, reared and fought their riders as the Murdral beat at them, trying to force them through the flames. "Blood and ashes," Mat said faintly. Rand nodded numbly. Abruptly, Moiraine wavered and would have fallen had Lan not leaped from his horse to catch her. "Go on," he told the others. The harshness of his voice was at odds with the gentle way he lifted the Aes Sedai to her saddle. "That fire won't burn forever. Hurry. Every minute counts." The party charged northward as fast as they could go, and eventually Lan and Moiraine did catch up, though Moiraine looked like shit. "I'll be fine soon," she said to their worried expressions. "I'm just not so good with earth and fire, so it took a lot out of me. No biggie." The two of them moved into the lead again at a fast walk. Rand did not think Moiraine could stay in the saddle at any faster pace. Nynaeve rode forward beside the Aes Sedai, steadying her with a hand. For a time, as the party went on across the hills, the two women whispered, and then the wisdom delved into her cloak and handed a small packet to Moiraine. Moiraine unfolded it and swallowed the contents. Nynaeve said something more, then fell back with the others, ignoring their questioning looks. Despite their circumstances, Rand thought she had a slight look of satisfaction. Rand didn't give a fuck about that. He was too busy stroking his hilt, thinking about the battle they just fought. So that's what a battle is like, he thought, trying to piece it together, but everything was a blur in his memory. He looked to his friends, and Mat was scrubbing sweat off his brow while Perrin was dissociating so hard he didn't notice he was positively dripping. As the landscape leveled out a bit, Lan and Moiraine rode ahead to have a private conversation, though it became apparent from Moraine's sharp gestures that it was an argument. After a few awkward minutes, Egwene turned to Rand and said, "Those things you were shouting, what about them?" he asked. "We only heard Mat retell the story like 10 times on this trip." "And badly," Tom put in. Mat grunted in protest. "However he told it," Rand said, "we've all heard it any number of times. Besides, we had to shout something. I mean, That's what you do at a time like that. You heard, Lan. And we have the right, Perrin added thoughtfully. Moraine says we're all descended from those Manetheren people. They fought the Dark One, and we're fighting the Dark One. That gives us a right. Egwene sniffed as if to show what she thought of that. I wasn't talking about that. What what was it you were shouting, Matt? Matt shrugged uncomfortably. I don't remember. He stared at them defensively. Well, I don't. It's all foggy. I don't know what it was, or where it came from, or what it means. He gave a self-deprecating laugh. I don't suppose it means anything. I I think it does, Egwene said slowly. When you shouted, I thought, just for a minute, I thought I understood you. But it's all gone now. She sighed and shook her head. Perhaps you're right. Strange what you can imagine at a time like that, isn't it? Could I on Caldazar, Moraine said. They all twisted to stare at her. Could I on Elisanda, Al Elisanda, for the honor of the Red Eagle, for the honor of the Rose of the Sun, the Rose of the Sun. The ancient war cry of Manetheren and the war cry of its last king. Eldrine was called the Rose of the Sun. Moraine's smile took in Egwene and Mat both, though her gaze may have rested a moment longer on him than on her. The blood of Aemon's line is still strong in the Two Rivers. The old blood still sings. Egwene seemed like she wasn't sure how to take that, but Mat did, scowling. Rand seemed to think that maybe if this was true, the Trollocs were really just after Mat and not all three of them, since maybe he was some descendant of some ancient king. He felt bad for thinking it, though, and blushed, and when he looked at Perrin, he could tell he also felt guilty for thinking the same thing. Can't say I've heard that one before, said Tom, and at any other time I might even make a story out of it. Are you going to sit here all day? No, Moraine replied, and as if to emphasize her words, a horn sounded in the distance. They've passed the fire, Lan said. You're not strong enough yet to do what you were planning. You need rest. Neither Madral or Trolloc will enter that place. Fine, whatever, she says, but just know that this sucks ass and I really don't want to do this. She pulled out her staff and told everyone to huddle up. When they got as close as their horses allowed, she waved her staff over all of them several times and then whipped it westward, a wind picking up in that direction, sending leaves flying. That will send our scent that way to confuse the Trollocs. The Madral will eventually figure it out, but it should give us enough time to skedaddle. Your staff is very powerful, Egwene said, which caused Nynaeve to roll her eyes. Do you not listen, little girl? Moraine said. I told you, things don't use the one power. People do. This staff isn't even an Angreal, it just helps with concentration. Lan beckoned to the group to follow him as he led the way north again, not at the crashing speed from earlier, but like a quick walk. Nynaeve rode alongside Moraine, concern warring with dislike on her face. Moraine was swaying in her saddle, shoulders slumped, looking like that last weave took way too much out of her. They came upon a great irregular mass that took them a while to realize was, in fact, a city behind a city wall covered in vines. Covered in vines because it was an abandoned city. A city at least 50 times the size of Baerlon. I wonder what city it was, Egwene mused. I wonder what happened to it. I don't remember anything from Papa's map. It was called Aridhol, Moraine said. In the days of the Trolloc Wars, it was an ally of Manetheren. Staring at the massive walls, she seemed almost unaware of the others, even of Nynaeve, who supported her in the saddle with a hand on her arm. Later, Aridhol died, and this place was called by another name. What name? Matt asked. Here, Lan said. He stopped Mandarb in front of what had once been a gate wide enough for 50 men to march through abreast. Only the broken vine-encrusted watchtowers remained. Of the gates there was no sign. We enter here. Charlicorn shrieked in the distance. Lan peered in the direction of the sound, then looked at the sun, halfway down towards the treetops in the west. They've discovered it's a false trail. Come, we must find shelter before dark. What name? Nat asked again. Moraine answered as they rode into the city. Shadar Logoth, she said. It is called Shadar Logoth. That is the end of chapter 18.
Action packed.
Lots of action.
Very enjoyable. Very stressful. These three
Yeah.
chapters were very stressful to me.
They are stressful chapters.
I always enjoy scenes where Moraine is channeling, like channeling the one power. It's not really revealing much about the nature of the power itself, but it's through, you get some clues, I guess, right? Like this, not only can she summon the wind to catch their scent and throw it somewhere else, which is insane,
Mm.
right? She can make earthquakes and also Disco Inferno. Like that's crazy, right? It's really cool, and it makes me wonder. Different systems of magic have different rules and different conceptions of the magic itself, right? Whether it's sentient or not, for example. And so, what I don't know right now is if the one power is sentient. So whether it wants to do something, and because the way that Moraine talks about it, it's not objects that channel the power; it's people. So people become the conduits for the power to then work, whether it exists outside of that or not, or whether it can influence things outside of that or not. People become the conduits. Um, so does the one power have a will of its own, and that's why the taint on Saidin is so important, or is it just like a realm of limitless potential, and the only constraint on it is the imagination of the channeler? Right? Was it Moraine's idea to shake the entire ground, or did she just call for something to stop them, and the one power said, "I know what to do"? So I'm very curious to see if we get any more explanation of that. Like I said, I'm always interested in the logistics of a system like this,
Oh,
like
I
a magic
love a
system
magic
or anything.
system, and
Yeah,
I love this magic system,
yeah.
and I'm
Mhm.
excited for you to find out more about it.
Yeah.
That's a really really interesting idea because I almost, unless it's already explicitly stated, I never think of the magic system being sentient on its own in that way. At least not by default. So the fact that you even went there is to me just really interesting, like the different ways that we think about things and cover concepts and stuff. But that is a super super interesting question to pose, because then we sit there and we go, well, if the one power is sentient, then wouldn't the wheel of time be sentient too? And that leads to it being a physical thing, like you were asking about before, right?
Right.
At least that's how I make that connection.
But even then, that would imply that the wheel, as a physical object, is what generates the power
Right,
from the
like a water
turning.
wheel almost.
Yeah, and I don't know that that's. I don't know if that's what it is. If it
Or does
is, then
the
that's still very interesting.
or is it the other way around and the power acts as the water for the wheel and turns it?
I think that's
Yeah.
actually already specifically been stated that that's how that
Has it?
works. The one power
Oh, okay.
turns the wheel of time, which weaves the pattern of ages.
Oh,
Gotcha.
the
Yeah, yep.
dialectic, right? Yes, the dialectic. So I guess that's right. Yep. And then I'm still curious about, the extent to which the one power itself is like an entity or just a resource. Especially as we, when Rand was eavesdropping on Moiraine and Egwene, she was talking about the different elements, and she says here she's not as strong working with fire and earth. So whether that means, like what does that mean? Is it like a natural affinity that one has for different elements, or is it training? Like, can you be trained? Is it like bending? I
Yeah,
guess, like earth bending or air bending or fire bending. There's different philosophies to working with them, perhaps, and then that therefore influences what you can do with it and how much of a drain it takes on you. I don't know.
Yeah, if you recall in that conversation, she does specify that men are typically more skilled with fire and earth, and women are more
Hmm.
skilled with water and air. So
Hmm.
some of it is natural. Some people do have affinities for the wrong genders thing, I guess, if you want to put it that way. uh, yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
different people definitely
Those are
have
those are so
different
manly.
alignments with the elements.
Source: I'm a fire sign, and I was assigned male at birth.
Okay, well, I'm a water sign and was also assigned male at birth, so there.
I have no horse in this race.
I don't even know what we're talking about anymore.
I have no clue either. All I know is that I'm a water sign, and I was assigned female at birth.
Sure. Now we've got all that out there.
No horse in this race.
We've got all that out there.
Representation.
So what do you take of Nynaeve's attitude toward Moiraine?
I think this she talked about this more in the next chapter, but I was immediately interested to see that even though she has done nothing but argue with Moraine, the second that Moraine seemed to be like fatigued, Nynaeve was immediately there to help. Um,
Nynaeve's a Virgo. She cannot help but help. Sorry,
Earth sign.
I
Okay.
couldn't prevent that. I couldn't stop myself from saying that one. But no, she can't stop herself from wanting to help,
Hmm.
and especially when it comes to healing
Yeah.
or curing, and medical needs. She cannot. She has to do it. It really feels like it's just that mother hen natural instinct, because I'm very much the same way.
Hmm.
So I get it.
Yeah. I wonder if that's why she became wisdom. Was that temperament, or I guess that commitment to the principle was already there.
Or nature versus
Right.
nurture, was that her training? Like, you always help someone no matter how much you hate their guts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. It's like a chicken or an egg type thing, I
Could
guess.
be both,
Is
could
she
be,
wisdom
yeah.
because she wants to help, or did she become wisdom because she wants to help, or the other way around? Yeah. But no, I thought it was very interesting, and it's I love seeing when characters get more dimensions to them, because it would be so easy to just have Nynaeve hate Moraine all
Right.
the time, no matter what. It would be so easy to do that. So I like that it's not. That doesn't seem to be what's happening here. She clearly doesn't like her still, and she obviously is like, haha, my plant knowledge is actually helpful to you, meh.
Your fancy
Um,
magics can't do
but
everything.
right, I even said at one point I was like plant knowledge or plant medicine versus magic medicine because it's not like I don't think it's homeopathy necessarily. Like she clearly knows what she's doing, right? And these are like plants with known medicinal benefits that are feasible and uh like chemically, right? They do chemical reactions that then help with different symptoms of exhaustion or fatigue or sickness or whatever. But yeah, no, I like it. I like seeing them interact with each other because they're two different founts of knowledge, like two different knowledge systems, you could say. Like I'm sure Moraine knows something about this. She just, she has her own resources to pull on, and so it gets, you know, it it's even like different. I mean, they're different disciplines, right? They're parts of different disciplines if you want to think
Yeah.
about it that way.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that they would be more knowledgeable or more confident in the abilities of what they know. And not always, but it can happen that you tend to discount or devalue other disciplines in that way. There's more baggage to being an Aes Sedai, but say, I don't know, history versus political science or psychology versus sociology,
Yeah.
whatever, you know. But I like it. More of that, please.
There's also the weird shit Matt started yelling.
Hmm.
I am so glad when you got to that part, by the way, that was your chapter, because I would have butchered those words.
I've
I would have butchered them so horribly.
I've got some experience with the old tongue at this point.
That's what she said.
Oh.
But yeah, that's why like I knew you would know how to like accurately say that, and I am glad that you got that and not me.
Yeah.
But yeah, what the fuck was that, Matt?
Yeah, I'm very intrigued by that. Um, the sort of blood memory, ancestral memory, epigenetic memory, even because it's a concept in like studies about race and ethnicity and culture is like there's like a cultural memory that even if you
Mhm.
don't necessarily experience it yourself, you have inherited that
A
from
genetic memory type of thing.
yeah yeah that
I
you've
always
inherited
do
it.
love I love that concept so much. It's so
Hmm.
interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's a really like this in particular, this particular example is like a really explicit sort of reference to that I think, and to the idea that there's power in lineage. Like you, lineage counts for a lot, and it gives you a lot of things: stability, solidity of self and place and community, and even you know here in this world, our world, right? Lineage counts for a lot. There's certain legal privileges that you're only afforded because or when you have a documented lineage, or it's like proof of your humanity, even your proof of existence in a legal category of human with rights and privileges afforded to you. If you don't have a last name, then who are you really, and what does it matter
Right.
what happens to you? So I'm very interested in that as well.
Lots of fighting. It's
I was
not
going to say this
Can
is
we
the first
talk about
actual battle, right?
the description of that noose on a pole that
right.
damn near took out Rand?
The catch pole. Hmm.
It's so graphic in my head, and I know many years ago I have told Will this. I don't know if I've ever told you this, Flint, and Will may have even forgotten. As I have two severe fears in life. The first main one being clowns, but the second one is nooses. I can't handle it. I can't watch a movie where someone's being hung. I can't like the beginning of Hocus Pocus gets skipped consistently. I can't do it. So like reading something graphic like that and in that description was and it doesn't help that since this is my first reread and I had completely forgotten about it, that did not help anything
Hmm.
because there was no expecting it. There was no being ready for it for me this time. But I can appreciate the writing for that part and that battle and that scene. That it was very vivid and graphic and like just the right kind of way for that kind of writing. You know what I'm saying?
It also really says something about the Trollocs
Yeah.
that they're trying to capture, not kill,
Hmm.
because they want to keep their prey alive as long as possible.
Right.
Scary shit.
Yeah, not necessarily comfortable,
Right.
because it's just rope on a stick.
Yeah. They don't really care about comfort of their prey anyway.
Uh,
And let's face it, the cook pots have been mentioned. They are prey, not victims.
yep.
This is the first real battle scene like this, I think, right?
I
Like the first
think you're
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
big battle scene. They didn't even fight the drug car; they just ran from it.
I mean,
You know,
yeah.
that's
Right.
Rand
kind
is
of all
even.
they've been doing is running, and they're like individual confrontations, maybe, but nothing where they're fighting like dozens of enemies all at once.
Yeah.
Right, because the last real one we had was the attack at Eamon's Field, and Rand is not present for that, and everything at
Right.
that point is from his point of view, so we don't actually know. We all get that information secondhand.
Right.
Yeah. He just had to go up against. Was it only one, or was it like a handful of Trollocs?
There were a handful of Trollocs that attacked the farm, but I
Right.
think Tam killed most of them.
And then
And
Narg
then
just
while Rand
waited.
ran away, and then when he went back after Tam came and found him and was waiting in the forest when Rand went back, then Narg was still alive,
Yeah.
our king.
Uh.
Rest in
Yeah. Yeah. This is the first like big scale battle, and Rand even muses on it in the chapter. Like that's what a battle is like,
peace.
and then he can't even like remember what happened because it all just blurred together.
Yeah. The fog of battle,
Yep.
the fog of war, which again I think is Not something that only Jordan could write, but I think that he has a very good insight into,
He's,
given what we know about
he's
the
very
story.
skilled. Plenty of battles to come. Also, in that the girls they've they've just got their belt knives. Like, what the fuck are those gonna do? But they're still, they're baring their teeth. They're like,
Yeah,
don't fuck with me.
right. Girl bossing. Yeah.
With their
It's it's oh fuck, what's it called? It's giving that thing that animals do when they're really really scared
Hmm.
and they're acting aggressive, but they don't really have the means to be a danger.
yeah.
I can't think of the stupid fucking word right now, which means I am not being a credit to my degree in any way, shape, or form.
They're being chihuahuas.
Posturing.
It's kind of it's like posturing, it's threat something or other, and I can't think of the stupid word right now, but yes, that is essentially it. Where basically they do it in an attempt to like make their would be attackers more wary of them.
Hmm.
I don't think in this particular case it works, but instincts will out. Something like that comes around, you're gonna grab the nearest weapon at hand and bare your teeth, and that's all there is to it.
It's either that or curl up in a ball and die.
Yeah, that too.
We know Two Rivers folks don't do that.
No, they don't do that. Homie, don't play that.
Oh, something I forgot to say. We were talking about Nynaeve helping Moraine. I said, I'm sorry, but it's giving enemies to lovers a little bit.
Ooh, I mean, I've seen it shipped before, so
Yeah. It's like me pointing and then the lesbian flag is next to me, you know? Yep. And then I think it's Lan who cuts the Fate's head off, which,
yes.
okay, work.
I mean, can you see any of the boys doing that?
No.
No,
No.
not even by accident.
No.
Not
Rand
not
is literally not even swinging the sword right.
no.
The way that
It
Lan
does,
taught him, so no.
I just realized it doesn't really describe what Tom was doing in battle. Like,
You're right.
I know he's got his throwing knives and all that jazz, but I don't know.
But like he's limited. Like how many knives can he throw?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? He's gonna run out of
And
them
this
just
isn't-
shooting arrows.
This isn't exactly the situation where he can retrieve them afterward.
Right, and this isn't K-pop Demon Hunters. He can't just form more.
Unfortunately, too bad.
Oh,
He can't get to the Honmun.
Yep.
How it's done.
Huntrix don't miss how it's done.
And apparently, neither does Lan taking off that
Correct.
head.
Repeat beat from last week. Shout out to friend of the pod, Hillary, who I mentioned last time.
Mhm.
There is this thing the fandom does that I know Lexi knows about it. I've sent her tons of the videos. I don't know if I've ever told you about it.
Oh, yes. Okay, I know where this is going.
Every year,
You're gonna love
the
this
fandom does an event called What Idol, and we all
Okay.
do a big thing where
Uh-huh.
we make like song parodies and make them Wheel of Time related. And this
Yeah.
past year, Hillary did one to How It's Done, and it's
Amazing.
phenomenal. But you
Amazing.
can't watch it till you finish book 6. So
God damn it.
be
Send it.
holding on to that for a couple years.
I will.
Send
will.
it to me so at least I can see it.
I
'cause you didn't
I did send
me
it
that
to
one.
you. I did
Did
send
you?
it.
Especially,
Okay, well,
Yeah.
send it to me again.
yeah. And what taste
'Cause I don't
she has to
remember.
pick how it's done. What taste?
Oh, also, like, she had fully recorded another video, had it ready to go, and then K-pop Demon Hunters came out. She got obsessed and fully scrapped it and recorded a new thing.
Understandable. I wish that I.
My favorite one that you sent me is still the one that was done to the day the music died.
Yes. Yeah.
I love that one so
Yeah.
much.
We might have to do
That one went viral.
Yeah. We'll have to do some bonus episodes here and there and
Yeah.
show you videos as they become spoiler level appropriate for you.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I'm down. I love that.
All right. Anyway, back to the subject at hand. We have arrived at Shadar Logoth,
Yay!
which is
And
what my Wi-Fi name is.
nice. Very
Is it
nice.
really?
Yes.
Well, now I understand. Now I understand the reference.
Oh my god, that's so funny.
Oh, I will say, I when Moraine says that the old blood still sings, and Rand is like, so maybe they're just after Matt. It's like he forgot that they went to his farm specifically. Like, hey, dude, it's not that they're only after Matt, because if they were, they wouldn't have gone all the way to find you through the woods. Um,
Right.
so no, you're not off the hook here. I know that you wish that you were, which is also shitty. Better him than me. Like I get it, but it's also shitty. But also it's not better him than you. It's still all of you. They're looking for all of you.
Yeah.
And then something about it's like the same feeling. Something about like a massive city like that, and it's totally empty. Abandoned. It seems like overgrown with vines and everything. It gives me the same feeling as I get about abandoned malls.
I was gonna say the same thing. It's
Yeah, it makes me so sad.
that weird liminal space vibe.
Yeah, yeah. It fills me with a deep sense of melancholy. Like this used to be someplace, and now it's not anymore. And all that's left is the bones.
Yeah, that's very Shadow Logoth vibes.
Speaking of, let's walk into it.
Let's do it.
Okay, chapter 19 is called Shadows Waiting, and the icon for it is two ravens, one looking kind of like backwards over its shoulder, and the other one sort of like bent down, almost like it's looking at the ground. The ravens mean a couple of things to avoid spoilers for Flint. Right now, all the ravens mean are shadows, or the shadow. My notes are very long. There's a lot in this chapter. As I mentioned before, favorite chapter in the entire book. So as they ride into the abandoned city of Shadow Logoth, Rand takes note of massive, crumbling structures, roofs caved in, lack of any animals. Like he's like, there's not even pigeons here in this overgrown wasteland of a city. The direct quote from the book: "Yet what was left standing was enough to take Rand's breath. The largest building in Baerlon would have vanished in the shadows of almost anything here. Pale marble palaces topped with huge domes met him wherever he looked. Every building appeared to have at least one dome. Some had 4 or 5, and each one shaped differently. Long walks lined by columns ran hundreds of paces to towers that seemed to reach the sky. At every intersection stood a bronze fountain or an alabaster spire of a monument, or a statue on a pedestal. If the fountains were dry, most of the spires toppled, and many of the statues broken. What remained was so great that he could only marvel. And I thought Baerlon was a city. Burn me, but Tom must have been laughing up his sleeve. Moraine and land too, he thinks to himself." So they stop at a building that is large enough to basically have the stag and lion fit inside of it. Lan and Moraine decide it'll do for the night, and passing the reins to the boys, Lan instructs them to find a room in the back to use for the horses. The others go in, and the boys follow along with Tom, taking the horses through the large main room. As they pass through, Rand overhears a conversation of Nynaeve tending to Moraine, with Moraine assuring her that all she needs is rest and asking if she has something to help her sleep that won't leave her groggy. As Nynaeve answers, Rand moves out of earshot into the next room. Here, the boys and Tom begin to unsaddle their horses. Matt checks through a door to discover an alleyway, and Perrin tells him to care for his horse because no one else will. Rand notices that Matt's looking sullen and very distant, so he asks him what's wrong. Matt says he was thinking about the war cry and how it was as if a dead man were speaking with his mouth. Perrin makes a joke about Matt being Aemon come back again, and Tom shuts him down, saying the dead can be reborn, or take a living body, and is not something to take lightly. "The old blood," she said. The blood, not a dead man. I've heard that it can happen sometimes. Heard, though I've never really thought. It was your roots, boy. A line running from you to your father to your grandfather, right on back to Manithrin, and maybe beyond. Well, now you know your family is old. You ought to let it go at that and be glad. Most people don't know much more than that they had a father. Matt nods in agreement and then wonders if this might have anything to do with what's happening to them. Tom says he should focus on getting out of there safely and then leaves to go have a smoke. Once the horses are cared for, Matt convinces Rand and Perrin, with a little bit of effort, to go and explore the city. They do eventually agree, and they go out the doorway that leads to the alley. The boys proceed to explore the massive city. The buildings were huge and grand, topped with domes and filled with marble pillars. Finally, all of them, exhausted and running on only an hour of sleep, sit on stairs leading up to a building with a ton of columns in front of them and argue about what to do next. Rand and Perrin insist on going back to go to sleep. Matt is convinced there's treasure in the city and wants to keep looking. Perrin says there isn't anything but dust in the city, and Rand says it's getting late and will be dark soon. Matt changes the subject and says he wants to climb one of the towers to see the view. Suddenly, a voice behind them says, "The towers are not safe." The boys all jump to their feet, turning and grabbing their weapons. A man stood in the shadows among the columns at the top of the stairs. He took half a step forward, raised his hand to shield his eyes, and stepped back again. "Forgive me," he said smoothly. "I have been quite a long time in the dark inside. My eyes are not yet used to the light." Rand asks who he is and what he's doing there, and as they thought the city was empty. The man replies that he is Mordeth, and that he could ask the same as them. Rand only answers that they're on their way to Camelin and stop to take shelter for the night. Mordeth repeats the word Camelin, sort of playing with it on his tongue before observing the rest of Rand's reply about staying the night, suggesting that they may join him. Perrin said he still hasn't said what he's doing there, and Mordeth says he's a treasure hunter. Matt excitedly demands to know if he's found any. Mordeth smiles, replying that he's found treasure, more than he can take with him, and if the three of them will help him get it to his horses, they can have a share of the rest, going on to say that anything left behind will be taken by other treasure hunters before he can return. Matt eagerly says they'll help and starts to follow Mordeth into the shadows of the pillars. Perrin says they can't leave Matt alone, and agreeing, he and Rand follow carefully, readying their weapons. Mordeth leads them inside and then down a very deep set of stairs that grows darker, but Mordeth assures them that there will be light at the bottom. As they reach the bottom, there's a room full of flickering torches. Mordeth leads them on, and Rand observes him in this time. There was something odd about him, Rand thought, but he could not pick out what it was exactly. Mordeth was a sleek, somewhat overfed man with drooping eyelids that made him seem to be hiding behind something and staring. Short and completely bald, he walked as if he were taller than any of them. His clothes were certainly like nothing Rand had ever seen either. Tight black breeches and soft red boots with the tops turned down at his ankles. A long red vest, thickly embroidered in gold, and a snowy white shirt with wide sleeves, the points of his cuffs hanging almost to his knees. Certainly not the kind of clothes in which a hunt through a ruined city in search of treasure. But it was not that which made him seem strange either. Mordeth leads them into another room full of flickering torches, and this time all the light is reflected by piles of gold, gems, swords and daggers encrusted with gems, etc. The boys exclaim how they can't carry it all and that they'll have to come back tomorrow. Lan and Moraine will understand. Mordeth takes note of that and asks if they're not alone and who is with them. Matt, going through a pile, absently lists off their companions and finishes off by saying they're going to Tar Valon. Rand gasps at Matt's lack of care and sees rage and fear twist Mordeth's face. "Tar Valon? You said you were going to this Camelin! You lied to me!" Perrin carefully says that if he still wants their help, they'll return tomorrow. Mordeth scrambles to kind of collect himself and reply, but struggles, and that's when Rand realizes what's been bothering him. "Bitch ain't got no shadow!" Rand says so, and Mordeth's reply was, "Well, now I can't let you live," or something as equally sinister. Like a balloon, Mordeth swelled, distorted head pressed against the ceiling, shoulders butting the walls, filling the end of the room, cutting off escape. Hollow-cheeked, teeth bared, in a rictus snarl, he reached out with hands big enough to engulf a man's head. Rand yells and goes to pull his sword, but his clumsy ass trips and falls. He hears yelling, and by the time he gets up to see who had done it, Perrin is holding his axe ready to swing, and Matt is looking around a treasure pile while holding a dagger he'd snatched up from one. The boys look around and see Mordeth hunched over knees to chest before he leaps through the air and turns into a smoke-like tendril, diving into a crack in the wall and shrieking like a Karen that they were all trespassing. That they are all dead, and vanishes into the wall. Ever the voice of reason, Perrin says they should get the fuck out of there. But treasure, Matt whined like a trumpet crying about emails. Rand drags him along as they haul ass to get out of there. The lights start to go out behind them, and Matt stops fighting it and runs on his own. They get up the stairs, out of the building, and into the street. Less than half of the sun was left as Rand looked around. The shadows looked like Mordeth, and the hair on his neck prickled. He knew that they were being watched. Stay in the middle of the street, stay out of the shadows, and walk fast, he says. The others agree, and they go, power walking through the abandoned city and feeling eyes on them the whole way, until they reached the buildings the others were waiting at. Twilight fell as the building came into view, and soon they were in a full run, bursting through the door and collapsing in a heap as they had tried to get back as quickly as possible to safety. Immediately, Nynaeve starts in on them and their idiocy, stating that Lan had to go out looking for them. Moiraine gives them a much gentler scolding and says they'll speak on it later. The boys all begin to tell their story in such a jumbled way that no one could really make out what they were saying. Eventually, Moiraine gets it, though, catching the name Mordeth and asking if they're absolutely certain that is the name. Asking if he touched them or gave them anything. Perrin and Rand say no, and Matt goes off on a tangent about how she said they were safe there, hyper-focusing on absolutely the wrong thing. Moiraine goes on to explain. Moiraine nodded briefly, but her eyes remained on Rand and his two friends. Late in the Trolloc Wars, an army camped within these ruins. Trollocs, Dark Friends, Myrddraal, Dreadlords, thousands in all. And when they did not come out, scouts were sent inside the walls. The scouts found weapons, bits of armor, and blood splattered everywhere, and messages scratched on the wall in Trolloc tongue, calling on the Dark One to aid them in their last hour. Men who came later found no traces of blood or the messages. They had been scoured away. Halfmen and Trollocs remember still, and that is what keeps them outside of this place. She then adds that if they hadn't been the dumbasses they were, they'd know that she'd set wards around the building that the Myrddraal wouldn't even know were there, but would also protect them from what was inside Shadar Logoth, and that they'd be safe and free to leave in the morning. Egwene, proving that literally no one from Eamon's Field can listen at all ever, says that she thought the city was called Eredal. Once it was called Eredal, Moiraine replied, and was one of the 10 nations, the lands that made the Second Covenant, the lands that stood against the Dark One from the first days after the breaking of the world. In the days when Thorin el-Torin el-Ban was king of Manetheren, the king of Eredal was Balwin Mayal, Balwin Ironhand. In a twilight of despair during the Trolloc Wars, when it seemed the father of lies must surely conquer, the man called Mordeth came to Balwin's court. The same man? Rand exclaimed. Matt said, "It couldn't be!" A glance from Moiraine silenced them. Stillness filled the room except for the Aes Sedai's voice. Before Mordeth had been long in the city, he had Balwin's ear, and soon he was second only to the king. Mordeth whispered poison in Balwin's ear, and Eredal began to change. Eredal drew in on itself, hardened. It was said that some would rather see Trollocs come than the men of Eredal. The victory of the light is all. That was the battle cry Mordeth gave them, and the men of Eredal shouted it while their deeds abandoned the light. The story is too long to tell in full, and too grim, and only fragments are known, even in Tar Valon, how Thorin's son, Caer, came to win Eredal back to the Second Covenant, and Balwin sat his throne, a withered shell with the light of madness in his eyes, laughing while Mordeth smiled at his side and ordered the deaths of Caer and the embassy as friends of the dark. How Prince Caer came to be called Caer One Hand, how he escaped the dungeons of Eredal and fled alone to the borderlands with Mordeth's unnatural assassins at his heels. How there he met Rhea, who did not know who he was, and married her, and set the skein in the pattern that led to his death at her hands and hers by her own hand before his tomb, and the fall of Aeleth L'Oreal. How the armies of Manetheren came to avenge Caer, and found the gates of Eredal torn down, no living thing inside the walls, but something worse than death. No enemy had come to Eredal but Eredal. Suspicion and hate had given birth to something that fed on that which created it, something locked in the bedrock on which the city stood. Ma Shadar waits still, hungering. Men speak of Eredal no more. They named it Shadar Logoth, the place where the shadow waits. or more simply, shadows waiting. Mordeth alone was not consumed by Mashadar, but he was snared by it, and he too has waited within these walls through the long centuries. Others have seen him. Some he has influenced through gifts that twist the mind and taint the spirit, the taint waxing and waning until it rules or kills. If ever he convinces someone to accompany him to the walls, to the boundary of Mashadar's power, he will be able to consume the soul of that person. Mordeth will leave wearing the body of the one he worse than killed, to wreak his evil on the world again. Perrin then realizes that the treasure they were supposed to help him carry was probably to horses that were supposedly waiting outside the city walls. This is agreed to, and through a little bit more conversation, Moraine assures them that they are safe and he cannot cross the wards nor any other denizen of the place. They must hide from sunlight so they will be safe in the morning when they can leave. After a little bit more conversation discussing Lan being gone and Moraine assuring Nynaeve that even though he's been gone for a long time, he will be fine on his own, they settle down and go to sleep. Rand sleeps fitfully for a bit. He wakes up at one point and then ends up gathering his blankets and going back to sleep. Moraine comes awake when Lan comes back, and he opens his hand. 3 small objects fall into the tiles in front of her with a clink of iron. 3 blood-red badges in the shape of horned skulls. There are Trollocs inside the walls. Moraine asks how many, and if they know that they're there. Lan says he doesn't think they know that they're there, but that there are well over 100, and they're frightened enough to kill anything that moves, including one another. The halfmen are having to drive them. There's 4 of them just to handle one fist, and even the Myrdal don't want to be there, it's clear. Moraine senses something in Lan's speech and asks if there's anything else, and Lan says only that if the Myrdal had to force the Trollocs into the city, what forced the Myrdal in? Right? Because Moraine's story just said no one wants to be there. At this point, they decide that it's time to fucking leave. So they pack up, they mount the horses, they start to head out. Matt asks, what if there's more outside the walls? What will he do? Moraine says, we will use my original plan, which I was too tired to carry out, but am rested enough for now thanks to the wisdom. We will make for the river. With our backs guarded by the water, I can raise a smaller ward that will hold the Trollocs and halfmen back until we can make rafts and cross over. Or better yet, we may even be able to hail a trader's boat. The faces of the Eamon fielders look blank, and Lan noticed. Trollocs and Myrdal loathe deep water, and Trollocs are terrified of it. Neither can swim, and halfmen will not wade anything more than waist deep, especially if moving. Trollocs won't do even that if they can find a way to avoid it. So they start heading out of the city so that they can get to the river and build rafts. And that's where we leave.
Love a lore dump. Love a lore dump.
Lots of big lore dump, and that is why I just quoted so much of it, because as I've mentioned many times, I love lore, and I can't do it justice in summary.
Yeah.
Matt, shut, Matt. Just.
Matt needs to shut his whore mouth.
It's like he doesn't fucking learn. Ever.
Matrim, dumb bitch, coffin.
Yeah. Staple his mouth shut. At this point. Shut up, dude. No more talking. Just. You don't even know this guy. You don't know where the fuck he came from. Don't piss me off.
Right. Like, once again, Matt fucking it up for everyone else.
Yeah. It's like he gets told to do one thing and then he immediately does the exact opposite of that thing.
Right.
In Verilon, he said, hey, don't talk about Trollocs. And what the fuck did he do the first opportunity he got?
Let me tell you about Trollocs.
No, bitch. Shut up. Shut up. Stress me out.
So, Eridal, or Shadar Logoth, as we've seen, is a... I like to think of it as like a city-state because of how big it is, right? Mm-hmm. Just this massive abandoned city. Now we know why there's not even pigeons there, for obvious reasons.
Yep.
I don't know where the boys went wrong first. Probably leaving to go explore, but it honestly could have just been being friends with Matt is where they went wrong first.
They should have bullied him more.
Yeah. You think that any of them would learn, hey, maybe don't let Matt decide what we're doing. Maybe.
Right.
Maybe. I will say, this is, again, Maureen, they could never make me hate you, girl. But I don't think that it's entirely fair of her to say that if they had stayed, they would know that she would have placed wards. Sure, they could have waited until she had rested, right? Or she could have said, stay put. There's a
I feel like
I'm willing to trust in authority, but only to an extent. Right? And maybe it's just the thing in my brain where I have to have things explained to me clearly for me to be able to understand and therefore agree to them. Right? But if you don't say anything and then you say, I mean, like Matt said, she said they would be safe there from the Trollocs. He didn't think to infer anything from that. And she could have said, there's a reason that they won't come in here, and this is the reason. Right? They could have been laid out. I remember she did say, if I had to explain every decision I ever made to you, we would never get anywhere. I understand.
right.
This seems important. This seems important that everybody is on the same page. Um, so I don't think that was entirely fair of her to say if you had stayed put you would know, because even then, not necessarily unless she had told them, which she could have done at any time. Like the plan for being there, especially given that they saw that she and Lynn argued about this.
Right.
It's
I see
you
what you're
can make
saying, but I don't
decisions,
completely
but
agree with it.
yeah, you can make decisions for the good of the party, but it does behoove you at some points to explain why you're making the decisions that you're making.
Right.
Otherwise, especially not to excuse Matt because I'm still angry at him, but it there is a line somewhere that you can throw to be like, this is why I want you to stay here. Even if you
Yeah,
want to
but I
explain
don't.
all of the lore dump, you could say, it's just because the Trollocs won't come in here doesn't mean that you can just go wherever you want. So I just don't think it was entirely fair.
See, but on the flip side of that, because I don't entirely agree with you on that, I feel like there should be some degree of obviousness that they're entering a giant abandoned city. You would think it's abandoned for a reason, and if for no other reason alone than unsafe crumbling structures, don't go exploring. And even if you are going to leave, tell someone
Yes,
so
that
they
I agree
know,
with.
right?
Yeah.
I just feel like for me, it was a given not to leave the fucking group in a giant abandoned city. And I feel like maybe that's probably
Mm-hmm.
should be common sense, which we know Matt at least lacks.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and to some degree, the other two, because even though he had to convince them, they did eventually go with.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if they thought it was
I
empty, then you know.
But all she said was that they would be safe from the Trollocs. And Matt harps on that afterwards. You said we were safe. You said we were safe. And this is the problem with Matt's thinking because we've seen it over and over again. He hyper focuses on one thing and doesn't see the big picture. He doesn't think that just because she doesn't continue a sentence with, oh, we're safe from Trollocs, but watch out for this, there's absolutely no danger. That's exactly where his mind went. We are safe from this very present danger. There must not be any other whatsoever. And that is what angers me about Matt.
Mm-hmm.
There is it is purely black and white with him. There's no gray area, no potential for other things. It's we are either safe or we're not, right? Just like we saw him say it when he thought the Trollocs had stopped following them and all those other things. And that is the problem with him. And I will say, I think that because of how he is, he specifically should have needed to have, like, it should have been someone's thought to be like, stay, right?
Mm-hmm.
With or without an explanation, just stay.
Yeah.
If anything,
Clearly,
Nynaeve should have known enough to say something.
yeah, yeah.
Right, but she was distracted trying to care for Moraine. And with that, Moraine was tired. She asked for a rest. Specifically, she asked for an hour's rest without being groggy. So she probably rested for that hour and then set the wards and told everybody she set the wards. And I'm pretty sure the boys would have known if they had stayed.
They couldn't even wait 5 minutes.
Literally.
True.
Like Matt couldn't even unsaddle his own horse before he's sticking his head out other doors. So
Right.
I get where you're coming from. I just don't entirely agree with it.
Yeah. And it, like, I agree with what you're saying, especially that they should have told somebody that they were going somewhere. There was no need for the sneaking. That was not required. Especially because if you're sneaking, that means that you shouldn't be going anywhere.
Right.
That's the thing.
Like, you know that you're doing something you're not supposed to, or that somebody's going to want to stop you from doing. So maybe just hang out for a second.
Right.
But like you said, Matt,
I mean,
hyper focus. So he must have had the idea to look for treasure while they were there. Like while he was looking outside, while he was refusing to unsaddle his horse.
Already jumping on the idea of treasure.
Yeah, and then just lost sight of everything else. Which then, when this shady ass motherfucker showed up out of nowhere and was like, "Yeah, there's treasure. Want to come see?" And he's like, "Yeah, okay, dude. Do you also get an unmarked Vans? What the fuck, dude? No. Who the fuck is that man? And why is he in an abandoned city? Why is there nobody else here but him? Why are there no bugs? But there is this dude."
Also, how about the obvious name of More Death?
Like, hello?
No, ma'am.
Can we get any more obvious than Shaitan? I mean, right.
No.
More Death.
No, absolutely
Just
not.
saying.
Absolutely not. The whole time I was reading the scene where they were with him, I was like, no, stop, leave right now. Leave right now. If you had convinced me to leave where everybody else was, the second that man showed up, I'm like, absolutely not. Good fucking luck, dude. I'm going home. Bye-bye.
Right.
I'm out. Deuces. Nice knowing you, I guess. We can't just leave him. Sure, right. We sure the fuck can. Watch me. I'm already gone. Bye. No. Absolutely. Who is that? No. Nope. Stress me out.
They need to put a leash on Matt.
Legitimately.
Like one of those baby leashes.
Exactly. The baby harness. Yeah, the baby harness. Yep.
Or put him in like a backpack on Lan's back or something.
Yeah.
A baby holster.
Yeah. What they call this?
Matt has lost leg privileges.
Right. No, sir. You're done. We're done. No more. That's it. Tired of him. But it's, you need, for the purposes of the story, they need a foil, because if Rand is careful and Perrin is careful and Matt is careful, then nothing happens.
Yeah.
Right.
So, like, narratively, it makes sense. It just pisses me off.
Right.
Like, how long is it going to take him to learn this lesson?
Like, Rand gasping, like actively gasping when Matt said Tar Valon.
Hey.
Like, even Rand has begun to fucking learn to pay attention, which is saying a lot because, as we've said, the man is dense.
Right. And not to just spill your guts to strangers, dude.
Like,
how many times have we learned? Have they learned you can't trust fucking anybody? But I love, on a slightly different note, I love this chapter. I love the lore dump. I love the description. The description of... I had to cut so much of it out while they're exploring, because it's literally pages long.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just... It gives me this idea of this beautiful alabaster city overgrown with not green, but dead plant life, because the thing that resides in Shadar Logoth obviously leaves no life. That's why there's no bugs and no birds. So it's just crawling, with like dead vines that have been there for centuries or whatever. And I think it's the image and the montage of in my head reading that is always just so beautiful to me.
Yeah, beautiful and sad and awe-inspiring. Like, these kids from fucking bumfuck nowhere are in the middle of, a city-state. It must have been what it was.
It had to have been a city-state because it's that big.
Yeah. Like, you don't have watchtowers that are the size of fucking skyscrapers for no reason.
Well, and for the city itself to be, like, an ally to Manetheren. Like, it is its own
literally
major...
considered a nation.
Yeah.
It was one of the 10 nations. It is a city state. It has to be.
Yeah, definitely. And that again, that's part of why it makes me sad to like think of all of the people who lived there, who had lives there, who had their own stories, who had their own adventures, their own worries, and all of that is gone. It's just
See,
it's melancholy to me. The city itself probably still beautiful to look at. The
Hmm.
same reason that people go into abandoned department stores. You know,
uh huh.
but
Oh, like
See,
wait till you see what they did with it on the show. Like, oh,
for me, it's a little bit different. Like you were talking about, like going into abandoned malls and stuff. Those types of structures, I'm just more indifferent to. But the idea of a actual ancient ruins gives me a sense of melancholy peace.
Mhm.
Like for the malls and stuff and modern things, I think of them like you said. Like it's sad, right? And I think part of that is because I experienced that myself personally. But looking at ruins of a city, or when they dig up old ruins of a house in Egypt or something, that the idea of going into those gives me an overwhelming sense of peace, and I think it's because of history settled. You know what I'm saying? And when I think of Shadar Logoth during the day, especially in the sunlight, but just during the day when the shadows aren't creeping out, that's the feeling I get.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's Yeah, and I get the same. Like it's if I wasn't so interested in people, I would have more so than the places that they lived. I would have tried to be an archaeologist probably. Like I get it, just the detail of the buildings themselves is so
Right.
fascinating, and the scale and the logistics of building something like that. I think about that
Right. How
with the
how
pyramids,
did they build something like
with
that?
the Great Wall of China, like brick by
Yeah.
brick, right? That somebody had to put those bricks down and then meld them together, and then it had to stay, and then
Hmm.
weather the passage of time. Um, but I guess it's something like Shudder Logoth seems like a tomb or like a crypt,
Yes.
hmm.
and
Yes.
that's what makes me sad. The
I
sense of an abandonment or a decay into emptiness that seems unnatural, I guess, or the cause of it, or the result
right,
of
that lack
tragedy.
it's that lack of life.
Yeah, the result of tragedy,
Yeah.
rather than just places. People move, things change, places deteriorate, and that just kind of is
Hmm.
how it is. And wear and tear will come, and the ground and plants will come and overgrow whatever if you let it. Um, but it's different than like to me, it seems different than a place where a bunch of people died like overnight. It seems
Right.
like by the time
It's
that anybody got there, everybody was already gone, and all that was left
yeah.
was this darkness that's built into the
Yep.
bedrock of the place.
Yeah, I feel like if the description were different, if there were bugs and birds and maybe a little bit of actual greenery, it wouldn't feel so much like that tomb or that crypt you're discussing.
Yeah.
Right. But because there's absolutely a complete absence of anything alive.
Hmm.
One thing that always got me, how did the messages from the Trollocs get scrubbed?
Yeah.
That was something that always interested me. I want to know more about that.
Yeah. Because if they left the messages, then what, who, or what wiped it away?
I can't imagine Mordeath going through and doing
I
it.
feel like, and this statement is kind of treading into future knowledge a little bit, but not really. But in other times in the series that we see Trollocs leave messages and shit, it's usually with organic matter,
Hmm.
and I think the
Which Moraine
Mashadar kind of wipes all organic matter away.
that makes sense. I don't know if we saw
Yeah,
that
that
Moraine
would
said what
make
they wrote the
sense.
messages in, but
It's like they
if it
usually
was
do it
so.
in like blood or something. Sometimes shit.
You say I just assumed it was blood, which would make sense then.
Hmm.
I didn't think about it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it eats away all organic matter.
Yeah, that would make sense.
At the very beginning there, when Nynaeve is talking to Lan, And she says, I don't like her, but I help anyone who needs my help, whether I like them or not. I said, Queen, Nynaeve, they can never make me hate you. Hippocrates who? Hippocrates took his oath from Nynaeve, I bet.
Probably.
I can't believe she invented ethical medicine. That's crazy.
She totally did. Absolutely.
Yeah, love that. Love that. And it's again, it makes me wonder if it's the training as the wisdom that gave her that will, or it's that will that made her start training as a wisdom and then achieve that status. Whether that commitment, that ethical standard was already there.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about. It's very much a nature versus nurture discussion for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Is that already a part of who she was, or is that something that became a part of who she was?
Mm-hmm.
I like in this chapter how we really start to see the growth in Rand and Perrin, because we have always known that Perrin was already cautious, and we're seeing that caution more and more developed. And Rand is starting to become more and more observant, right? Rand is the one who noticed that there was no shadow,
Mm-hmm.
for example.
Which, terrifying, by the way. Absolutely
Right.
terrifying. What the fuck?
What type of Peter Pan bullshittery is this?
I don't like that. I don't like that. Imagine a guy standing in the middle of a room with a bunch of lights all around him, glinting off of everything, and there's no evidence that he's there other than you can see him. Terrifying.
Right.
Like, it's
Right.
hard for
What
me
is
to
that?
even wrap my head around, and also, I don't know that I would notice, because I don't really go around paying attention to people's shadows.
Well, it's like have you seen those pictures where I think it's a place in Hawaii where the sun will end up directly overhead, and so it shines on things that leave no shadow. Have you seen the pictures of those things? So there's like a
I
picture of
haven't.
like a pole in a
Yeah.
parking lot, and there's no shadow on it, but it's still like lit from above. It looks like it's superimposed on top of the picture.
Uh-huh.
It's really weird looking.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that. I'll
Yeah,
have to look that up at some point, because that sounds interesting.
yeah. No, it's cool to look at, but like imagine
Right.
so you look at that and then imagine that More Death looked like that, standing in the room with all the golden weapons. Terrifying.
Basically, like he's been, put in front of a 3D green screen or something. Like
Like a
he's been
diorama.
photoshopped in.
Yeah, like a diorama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole thing with Mordeth is a very what the fuck situation. Because, yeah, let's just follow this absolute stranger down these super deep dark stairs. Like you said, do you also get into unmarked vans? At least the other two were smart enough to ready their weapons.
It's
Yeah.
giving very, like, follow me down here, Georgie.
Yes. It's giving Pennywise.
Like,
Yes. Absolutely.
Really,
You'll
is.
you'll float too. Mm-hmm.
Jesus.
And then of course he becomes Mist, which is fine.
Okay, the mist thing was definitely less unsettling than like the swelling thing.
Yeah. I don't like that. Yeah.
No, I do not. No, thank you. I'm out. Peace. Deuces. I'm gonna run back to my wards.
Yeah. Bye bye. Bye bye.
I am surprised that they do not haul ass the whole way back. They walk fast. They don't run. I'm sorry, I'd have been running.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have slowed down none.
Yeah. I wonder because it's like the buildings seem to be watching them. Maybe that's why they didn't start running. Because then if something was gonna wait to chase them, then if they started running, it would start chasing them sooner, or it's no sudden movements or anything. But
like it's almost twilight, and as soon as the building comes into view, they pick up their speed, and by the time they reach it, they're fully running. So
yeah, and then the eyes are gone. There's nothing watching.
That is true. Yes.
Which is when Moraine said that she put up wards. I was like, well, that's why the eyes disappeared then.
Right.
That must be what it was. Is because
right.
So if they had stayed and she had set up the wards, they wouldn't even know anything was there, which is also still dangerous. I think. There's not ignorance is bliss only goes so far, especially if like they went out to because they heard a noise.
I
And
feel
then
like if they had stayed, there would have been a much smaller lore dump, and at the very least, they would have been warned about the other dangers.
definitely.
But I feel like there were other priorities to be handled first.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like getting the wards up, which means she hand arrest.
Right. I agree. But we got a lore dump out of it.
All in
Big
all,
one. So.
yes, we did. We did. You know, we learned that Shadar Logoth was once Arendelle, which they did say previously, so Egwene just wasn't paying attention.
Nope.
And we know that they were part of the group that fought against the Dark One, and then they essentially fell to the Dark One. I would like more lore on Mordeth's origins. He must have been part of, a dark friend or a creation of the Dark One to be able to sow that much darkness within an entire city state like that. You know what I mean?
I don't know. Sometimes there's just a secret third thing, which is a person who sucks but hasn't sold their soul to the devil.
True.
Well, because as I was reading what Moraine was saying, I was reminded of Rand's dream in the Stag and Lion, because Baalzamon says that he did the same thing to Arthur Hawkwing. Showed up and like whispered insanity into his ear, essentially.
Yeah, that
right.
is true.
And changed him from what he had been.
That is true. So maybe he is like a small slither of the Dark One, like a piece of his soul or something. And that's also why he got trapped there instead of being consumed.
Is it that he wasn't consumed? Because we'll get into this in my chapter, but the shape, the form of Mashadar is also
Let me bring it back up.
missed. But so I'm not sure. I might have skimmed over that part, or I might have missed the distinction. But it seemed like Mordeth became consumed by what was there.
The exact quote says Mordeth alone was not consumed by Mashadar, but he was snared by it.
So yeah, it didn't devour him, but he is a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He is the consciousness behind it.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because we're getting like a really interesting triangulation here. I think it's like them, and then the Trollocs and the Fades, who are minions of the Dark One, and then this other thing that is not necessarily the Dark One, but is also still malevolent.
Right, maybe is also of the shadow.
Yeah, and it's like Will said, like a secret third thing. Like not all evil presence has to be necessarily reflective of the Dark One's work, even if the Dark One himself might say that, like I say that it is, to sort of enhance the perception of his own power. But that's also interesting to me, that there are other forces, because the Trollocs don't like that place. They don't want to go in there because they remember, right? They have their own ancestral memory of that place, and it's that they got fucking obliterated.
Right.
Yeah. So it's very interesting.
Which brings us around nicely to that point. Why the fuck are they in there, and what made them go in
what drove the Murdral to bring them in?
Yeah. And why, like, it's so bad that they need 4 Murdral for 1 fist.
Yeah. Which I think is
to control those and force those Trollocs.
Is a fist like 100? Is that Is that the conversion? It seems
a fist is a group of 100 Trollocs, and usually 1 Murdral can control a fist.
Yeah, it's interesting how the like hand-based measurements, but I guess it's more kind of Middle English.
I feel
stuff,
like it's just kind of like their version of a herd, or you know what I mean?
Possibly. It reminds me of the.
That's how I always viewed it.
It reminds me of the imperial system, which is it's like base 12. Yeah. And it's all hand stuff. You can, because each of your fingers have 3 segments, so there's 12 finger segments plus a thumb. And you can measure like a handful of something, like a pinch. That's what it made me think of. I am curious to see if we're going to see uh, somebody like a dead person reanimate or possess somebody. I'm interested to see if we'll encounter something like that. Like Tom is like, absolutely not. Don't joke about that.
Right.
Somebody getting possessed by somebody who died.
Don't fucking do it. That's serious shit. We do not talk about it.
Yeah, yeah, because it again, that's like another maybe like another force of evil, another dark thing, another darkness alignment, right? Because then is like, are there necromancers here? That's very interested to see, because that's another whole branch of knowledge then that's available to people who have the need or the desire.
Right. Yeah, Tom is so interesting. Like, I just thought of this when you said it. Of him, being like, we don't talk about that, and this is why. Because as a Gleeman, he does have all of these stories. How much of them does he know is true, and how much does he not believe? Right? He's a great dropper of information. He was able to inform Rand back in Two Rivers about being careful about dealing with the Aes Sedai, and you know, he's a very wise person, and I do believe that a lot of that comes from the wisdom and knowledge of the stories that he has gathered over the years. It's just I know that there's a word for that type of character, and I can't think of it, but I really, really do like that role that Tom plays, especially for the boys.
Yeah.
I also feel that it's good that they feel they can trust him because they obviously don't feel like they can fully trust the others.
Right. He doesn't have the same kind of
Lan and
baggage.
Moraine.
Yeah.
Right.
I did also think it was
So.
funny that he said there's a line running from Matt to his father to his grandfather all the way back to the ancient kings, because the most effective method of tracing ancestry is through tracing mothers. So
I mean,
if you were going to trace Matt's descendants from the ancient kings of Manetheren, you would have to look at his mom and then her mom and then her mom all the way back, assuming that Aemon had any daughters or whatever his name is, um, had any daughters, and if they had daughters, right?
Right.
Because it's not necessarily because those his sons could have gone anywhere, and so the uh, that lineage could show up anywhere then,
Right.
and it's less because specifically of the way that the genetic mixing happens. The clearest line for tracing ancestry multiple generations back is through tracing the X chromosomes because they're inherited directly from the mother.
Mitochondrial DNA for the win.
Yeah, so it occurred to me as you were talking about it, and I was like, that is that's you know, it's
But
less
because
reliable, but it's
but because it's still patriarchy,
mm-hmm.
you trace the line of your fathers, and women trace the line of their mothers.
Right. Well,
That's
and
how it's
yeah,
supposed to
and
be.
the women would have the patriarchal names anyway. They would carry
Right.
whatever names of whoever their husbands were, and then the kids would carry the names of the fathers, presumably.
Right.
Here, I don't know anything about Matt's mother. I don't think.
No, I don't think we've learned anything about her yet. We know that Matt's dad doesn't hold any trust in Matt to not fuck shit up,
Yeah.
but that's about all we really know.
Yeah. Those memories are vague, and I did just listen to our entire first episode a lot, because by the way, this is the first episode we're recording in which a transcript that I worked on is live. So, listeners, if you have any feedback about the transcript, if you look at it, I would love to hear from you because I want to make sure that it's useful. Anyway, the story of Eridol itself was interesting to me, especially as he talks
Yes.
about like the victory of the light is all that battle cry. Because I said there's like this is why there's no such thing actually as like objective truth or morality or ethics. You can claim any
Right.
act to serve any purpose as long as you have the language and the will to do so. You can say that
Oh
you
yeah,
can say
no,
that you're doing
that
anything
whole
for any
story,
reason.
it's giving White Cloak.
Yeah, yeah. Fanaticism will take you anywhere.
Yep.
Especially if you have the language to make it seem like you're doing something right.
Yep.
or more authoritative, more knowledgeable.
Yeah, no, it is interesting. And the way the story is told, it's almost like their actions and them turning on each other within Eridal is what created Mashadar to begin with.
Yeah, that is what it seems like, which is also such an interesting concept. It's for some reason it. Did you see The Grudge? Have you seen The
No,
Grudge,
but I know the
the
plot.
movie? Um,
No, but I know the plot.
yeah. So the American Grudge with Sarah Michelle Gellar is a remake of Ju-on, which is a
Yep.
Japanese franchise. There's tons of
Yep.
there's tons of those movies. I just listened to a different podcast about this, which is why I'm thinking about it. But every single one of those, it opens with like this this story or like this explanation that when death happens in the when a tragedy occurs in like the grip of rage, a curse manifests itself, and it is that curse that then continues to kill people, right? And anybody that enters the place where the tragedy occurred and the curse exists is then cursed. So it's very interesting to me that the acts of people could create something greater than them and that exists independently from them, and then
Right.
but it is something else. It is not just them. It is something beyond them now. Because even
Right.
if they stopped doing what they were doing, the thing is already here. It's very fascinating to me, especially to
That
tie
is
it to a
interesting.
place. To tie it to a
Yep.
place, and then anybody who enters the place is then subject to whatever is in there. I like it. Lots of very cool things that are happening.
Yeah. Speaking of whatever is in there, should we move on to the next chapter?
Sweetly. So, chapter 20 is called Dust on the Wind, and it is the same icon header that we saw in chapter 18, which is hopefully is enough foreshadowing on its own about what happens in this chapter. The curtains are, in fact, blue. Having decided to leave Shadar Logoth in the middle of the night because the Trollocs are there, the party sets off from their base, following behind Lan. Rand looks around and is living my actual worst nightmare of walking through a place where everything seems to be watching you. Buildings with empty windows that look like eye sockets, crying, shaking, throwing up. Bad. No thanks. However, the eyes that had been watching him, Matt, and Perrin before seem to be gone, which unfortunately is only temporary relief, since Rand asks himself, why are they gone now? Even though they're no longer within the protection of Moiraine's wards, the shadows appear only to be shadows. Suddenly he realizes that they're far ahead of them, Moiraine and Lan, too far ahead. But as he tries to catch up, he sees a thread of silvery fog floating just above the ground in front of him. Moiraine urges him to stop, and he does, and the thread thickens and spreads, seemingly joined by other tendrils oozing from the buildings around them. As Moiraine studies the now glowing fog, Nynaeve asks what it is. The evil of Shadar Logoth, Ashadar, unseeing, unthinking, moving through the city as aimlessly as a worm burrows through the earth. If it touches you, you will die. Dun dun dun. Egwene asks if Moiraine can kill it, and Moiraine says, girl, please. Not only is it unkillable, even trying to damage it enough to let them through would use enough of the one power to draw the Trollocs to them, and Mashadar would rush in to heal the damage to itself and capture them all and kill them. Nope, everybody's on their own now. So Moraine says that because Mashadar won't have covered the entire ground yet, there will be safe streets for them to go down. She points to a red star low in the eastern sky and tells them to make for that star, which will bring them to the Arenal River. Egwene asks how they'll find Moraine again, and she replies that she'll find them, before warning them, this thing is utterly mindless, but it can sense food. Fucking terrifying. It's like the same reason you should be afraid of the ocean, which I very much am. Anyway, Moraine and Lan leave after that, and Rand is left with the others Egwene, Nynaeve, Perrin, Matt, and Tom, just in case we're forgetting that there are now 8 people in this party, or losing track of everyone who's come along. Reminder, only 5 people were supposed to leave Emmons Field originally. It's a lot of folks. Rand looks at everyone else, and they all wait for someone else to move first. Surrounded by a ruined city, possessed by a darkness that even Trollocs are afraid of, with tendrils moving toward them, no longer hesitating in their movement. Rand turns Cloud, and the horse begins moving, making Rand the impromptu leader, because being a leader is often just making decisions when other people can't or won't. Ask me how I know. As they try to navigate Shadar Logoth, Rand knows that everyone, including him, is on the verge of panic, and he tries to keep it together. Rounding a corner, they encounter a wall of fog, glowing as brightly as the full moon. Streams of it, as thick around as their horses, meaning they're big as fuck, reach out to them, and this time nobody waits to move. However, they run from the fog straight into Trollocs because they're caught between a frying pan and a slow cooker. Horrible times all around. For just a moment, everybody stares at each other, surprised, before more Trollocs appear and they charge. Rand tries to direct the others, but they've scattered. He's on his own. Well, except for Cloud, of course. Dust on the wind, as it were. As Rand runs, he can see windows filling up with more fog, and looking behind him, the Trollocs are only about 50 paces behind, and keeping pace with his full gallop. Behind them, a Fade rides, and Rand notes that the Trollocs seem to be fleeing the Fade as much as they're chasing him. Riding on, he sees 6 tendrils wave in the air, and though Cloud screams, Rand keeps running between the tendrils while keeping his head down. They make it through into the shadows beyond, and Rand looks back again at his pursuit, which has stopped dead in front of the fog, clamoring to stay away from it. The Fade takes a whip, and right now S&M by Rihanna is playing in the background in my head. You see the vision? And cracks it over their heads with a sound like a lightning bolt. Imagine using that in like a drag show. The girls would be so shook. I am shook. It works, though. The Trollocs continue, and the Fade follows. Mashadar sways for a moment before the tendrils strike like vipers. Terrifying. Latching two to a Trolloc. They tried to scream, but their heads were underwater. Because the fog literally goes into their mouths, eating the howls, the text says. Again, crying, shaking, throwing up.
Horrific.
4 more grab the Murdral, and it shrieks almost silently, though a piercing whine only barely comes through. Ouch. Cloud begins to run again until Rand can't hear the Fade dying anymore. Stopping, Rand sees a jagged wall now at the junction of 2 streets and another monument in front of him. There's only silence now, and eventually Rand straightens, seeing the red star in the sky again. It's here that he finally, now that he's not in immediate mortal peril, begins to wonder about the others and why they didn't follow him instead of scurrying like bugs underneath a big light. Trying to find them would be pretty much impossible, he knows, because Shadar Logoth is huge and empty and full of places to hide, let alone the Trollocs and the Half-Men and Mordeth and Mashadar. Oh my. With this in mind, Rand decides to head for the river, but he hears one stone hit another as if something moved it, and at a corner ahead, he sees a dark shape and what looks like a waiting catchpole. So he charges and swings his sword. Good thing he was able to stop it, though. I think he would have taken Matt's head clean off. He asks if Matt has seen anybody else, but Matt says only Trollocs. They begin then to make for the river together when they hear a horn and another. The horns don't sound again, though, and the boys come up to an opening that had once been a gate, though only the towers remain. Matt hesitates, but Rand asks, is it any safer in here than out there? As though it's safe anywhere. Again, frying pan, slow cooker. You're cooked either way, unfortunately. Uh, they creep out of Shadar Logoth, finally beyond the reach of Mashadar and Mordeth, for now anyway. Surely he hasn't just disappeared forever, because that bitch is terrifying. And then Tom gallops past them, shouting at them to ride faster, just before they hear hunting cries and crashes from the pursuing Trollocs. Matt and Rand follow Tom, though Rand wonders what will happen when they get to the river without Moraine and Egwene. POV change. Hello. Hello. Hi. POV change. We are now Perrin Ibarra, sitting on his horse, in the shadows looking at an open gateway. Hard shift. Somewhere else now. Perhaps the same gateway that Rand, Matt, and Tom had gone through, perhaps a different one. Shadar Logoth is big as fuck, you know. It seems like a clear way out, but Perrin continues to study it, thinking. Most people, he knows, in Emmons Field considered him slow thinking, perhaps impeded. He moved around carefully, so aware and afraid that he could accidentally break something or hurt someone, because he's so much larger than everybody else. But unlike fucking Matt, Perrin likes to think things through all the way when he can. Since his friend's quick thinking usually gets him into trouble like it did 15 fucking pages ago. Anyway, as Perrin studies the gateway, we learn that it's beyond what had been some kind of town square with a fountain in the middle, though only part of the fountain was still there by now. The gateway is far from him, with only the night to provide cover, though even the buildings have eyes here. I hate this place. Hate it. It's my worst nightmare. That said, he does decide to make for the gate, and as he starts moving, another horse appears on the far side of the square. Perrin reaches for his axe before he hears Egwene's voice, which of course means that both she and Bella are still alive. Thank fucking God. Neither of them have seen anybody else, and when Egwene asks if everyone will be alright, Perrin says that Maureen and Lan will look after all of them once they're at the river. Nonetheless, he and Egwene now leave Shadar Logoth behind as well. The Perrin's relief is also short-lived. He believed, because he had to, that they would get to the Arenal and Maureen would keep them all safe. Suddenly, a Trolloc horn sounds, urging the hunters to hurry. They've caught the scent now, and the hunt is on again. Perrin and Egwene begin galloping, racing through the trees, but Bella begins to fall behind, despite Egwene trying to urge her forward. Perrin can see the Trollocs in the trees now, and he urges Egwene to hurry while galloping ahead. His horse screams, and suddenly Perrin is falling, off of his horse and into the fucking river. He hears another splash, and assumes that it's Egwene, treading water while he tries to call for her. A spear flashes in front of him instead, as more splashes signal other Trollocs throwing their spears as well. So maybe the first splash he heard wasn't Egwene falling straight into the river. Maybe Bella didn't just fucking drown here. Maybe. The current takes him downriver, and Perrin undoes his cloak to let the Arenal have it before swimming for the other bank, where he could only hope that there were no more Trollocs. Weighed by his clothes and axe, though, he's getting exhausted, and his head stops making it all the way above water as he swims, until suddenly he feels ground under his feet. He has swam across the whole fucking river because Perrin Aybara is that bitch. Coming out of the river, he doesn't see Trollocs or Egwene, and when he gets his breath back, he starts to call for them again, but only hears faint shouts and more Trollocs. Shivering, soaking wet, he makes his way up the riverbank to seek shelter from the wind, and that's all we get from Perrin. But the chapter is not over yet. Jesus Christ. Back with Rand, they seem to have left the Trollocs behind. The cloud is obviously still agitated because this shit is stressful as fuck. While Matt watches their surroundings with an arrow at the ready, Rand and Tom try to find the Red Star again, which they had lost when 2 packs of Trollocs had rushed them. Matt points in one direction before Tom spots the star in the opposite direction from Matt, and Rand sees a Trolloc leap from behind a tree without a sound. By the way, what? They're supposed to make noise. Why are they ambush predators also? Hate that. And dodges 2 more. 2 more Trollocs, though he feels the news from a catchpole brush the back of his neck. Ugh. Matt gets one in the eye, period, and they begin running toward the river again. But the Trollocs get close enough to grab their horses' tails. Oh my god. Rand has just enough time to wonder where Tom is, if he decided to abandon them, before Tom appears behind the 3 Trollocs chasing them. His hands whip back and then forward, and a glint of moonlight flashes off of steel as 2 Trollocs go down. The third runs away, and Tom whips another knife at him, but the Trolloc keeps going. Is this a safe space? Can I be so honest? This was so sexy of Tom, actually. I'm blushing.
No, I was right there with you. That shit's hot.
Suddenly, I'm so attracted to him. My bad.
It's the Aragorn entrance all over again.
My bad, Tom. I was unfamiliar with your game. My bad. Anyway. They set off again, now, all 3 of them, and they reach the river, and the river is so wide across that Rand can't see the other side at all. They hear another Trolloc.
And Perrin swam that.
And Perrin swam that because he is that bitch. We have to stand. Triathlon who? Whatever. He's got it. It's fine. Iron Man who? This is the first time they've heard of Trolloc horn since leaving Shadar Logoth, and Rand wonders if it means they've captured someone. It might be when they were chasing Perrin and Egwene, actually. Tom leaves them no time to dwell, though, and asks which way, upriver or down. Matt points out that because Maureen and the others could be anywhere, either choice could take them further away. Tom is like, you right? And then starts heading downriver. Okay, anyway.
Matt was right.
Yes, he was. And Tom said, okay, so we're going downriver then? Great. They travel in silence for a time, having lost their pursuit for the moment, and then Rand notices a light ahead, well above the river as if it were in a tree. As they move closer, the light turns out to be a lantern on top of the mast of a huge trading boat at least 80 feet long. Better than a raft, or swimming, by far. Tom warns Rand and Matt to let him do the talking, and as they're preparing to board the boat, 6 Trollocs appear in the clearing. Yanking the rest of his things free of Cloud, Rand follows Tom as he runs toward the boat, vaulting over the rail and right onto a dude sleeping on the deck. My bad, sir, I guess, but also, why the fuck are you sleeping on the ground? A catchpole slams into the railing where Rand had just jumped over, and the Trollocs' goat horned head appeared. Stumbling, he still manages to swing his sword at it, and the Trolloc drops from the railing. The crew has woken up by now, and they're unmooring the boat while three of them struggle with the Trolloc at the front. Amidst the sounds of fighting, the guy who'd been sleeping begs Rand to spare his life and offers him the boat. Just then, something slams into Rand from behind. Not me, unfortunately, and his sword gets knocked out of his hand as he falls forward to the deck. Trying to get up, Rand sees the guy disappear into the shadows before looking over his shoulder and seeing a Trolloc with a wolf's muzzle staring at him, and holding the catchpole it had broken, hitting Rand. As Rand tries to escape, to do anything, the makeshift spear rises, preparing to pierce him through, rip him to pieces. The Trolloc thrusts with the spear, but a boom, which is a pole that anchors a triangular sail, used to catch the wind, like it anchors it and makes it easier to steer it, swings out from the shadows, as catching the Trolloc, breaking some of its bones even, and knocking it back off of the ship into the river. Rand is now finally able to get up and get his sword, even finally holding it like Lan had taught him to. But they're well into the river now, and the Trolloc's cries are fading behind them. Just as Rand starts to relax, a man in a coat strides toward him angrily, long-haired, beard framing his face. He catches the boom before bellowing for Florin Gelb, who it turns out is the guy Rand stepped on. When asked whether he was supposed to secure the boom, Gelb says that he did. The captain accuses him of sleeping instead of standing watch, which he absolutely was. But he insists that he was standing guard when Rand snuck up behind him and hit him with a club. And then, of course, the Trollocs came. Gelb accuses Rand of being a dark friend, which is hilarious, given what we know of Rand's journey so far. And the captain retorts, in league with my aged grandmother, which is also hilarious. I like this guy. He tells Gelb that he'll be kicked off the ship once they get to Whitebridge before sending him off, and wondering why Trollocs keep following him. Rand notices that they're moving further away from the riverbank and tells the captain that they have friends waiting who will surely reward him for going back for them. Is he talking about Daddy Land's money bags here? Rand, that is so shady of you. Um, Tom begins to speak, but the captain tells him to come to his cabin. Once inside, he introduces himself as Bail Doman, captain of the Spray, and asks them who they are, where they're going, and why he shouldn't just throw them into the river. Which, like, I get it. Me, if I ever got caught up in someone else's adventure, honestly, get that shit a billion miles away from me. Thank you. Matt says they're going to Camelin, and then starts to say something else, but Tom cuts him off because Matt never knows when to shut the fuck up. Stitch his mouth shut. For all I care, nobody likes a jabberjaws. Tom introduces himself as a gleeman, and Rand and Matt as his apprentices. But Doman points out that where they'd come from was nowhere near a road to Camelin. Tom spins a yarn from there, as he does, telling the captain that he'd been trapped in a mining town in the Mountains of Mist by the snow. While there, he'd heard stories of treasure from the Trolloc Wars and the ruins of a city called Eredal. He knew the location of Eredal thanks to a map given him by a dying friend, who said the map would make Tom rich. And when the snows melted, he set out with his companions, including his apprentices, and they found the ruined city. But the treasure, sorrow of sorrows, had belonged to a dreadlord, and Trollocs had been sent to retrieve it. The dangers they'd faced all made their way into Tom's story from the Draghkar onward, though of course they were all targeting Tom, and he, plucky gleeman adventurer that he was, made it through unscathed. Escaping from Eredal, he said, they got separated from his other companions and continued to run until they found the spray. Doman points out that the story sounds unbelievable, except for how the Trollocs were there when he saw them. He asks if they managed to keep any of the treasure, but Tom says it was carried away with the horses, which, by the way, their horses are gone now? Cloud? Hello? Tom insists that the captain wants no part of that tainted treasure, which means they have no money. Doman says he wouldn't let his own brother ride for free, but also that he wouldn't toss them over the side if he could avoid it. He then brings up Rand's sword, which, hard no, babes. Bail Doman no give free passage, not to his own mother, the captain says, at which point Rand empties his pockets. All he has are a few coppers and the coin Moiraine had given them when they met. Matt offers the same, and Tom glares at them before hiding it behind a smile. Doman makes change and tells them that he'll take them to Whitebridge. Though when Tom grumbles, he also says it's costs for damages to the ship and for bringing the Trollocs. Maybe not so unreasonable after all, especially if they got change back. Rand asks again if they can go back for the others, and the captain tells him, "Baby girl, do you think that we've just been hanging out here? We're like 4 miles from where you came aboard because of the current, and because there's nothing like Trollocs to give your oarsmen some pep in their step. No, we might not stop at all until Whitebridge, because fucking Trollocs." Tom latches onto this part, asking about the captain's previous encounters, and he says that in Saldea there had been farms burning every night, and villages too. I think it's Saldea. He also says that rumors are flying about the Dark One returning, the end of days upon them. Rand, at this point, begins thinking about Egwene again and the others, noting how it seems unfair that he should be safe while they're God knows where. Suddenly, he and Matt are being rushed out of the captain's cabin back onto the deck, where Tom tells them he could have gotten them passage for some songs and stories if they hadn't shown the captain their silver so quickly. But Matt argues that the captain seems serious about throwing them overboard. Rand goes to a rail and stares back from where they came, though he sees only darkness. Tom tries to reassure him, saying they'd be safe with Lan and Moiraine, and Rand tells him he tried to talk Egwene out of coming, which I think Tom knows because I think he was there. When Tom tells him that he did what he could, all Rand can say is that he promised he would take care of her. "I should have tried harder," he whispers, and the chapter ends.
It do be Bail
So,
Dolan.
I love
Finally.
Bail Doman.
I like
I've
him a
been
lot.
waiting for him.
I like him a lot.
He is he is in my top 5 for favorite characters. Love Bail so much. Is this the first point of view change we have?
Yes.
That's what I thought.
I made that exact note. When I was reading, I was like, wait a minute. The first of thousands, I guess.
Short one.
Yeah, there's not too many in this book, but it definitely bounces around a lot more in the future.
Later.
Can't wait. Yeah, no, it was very fun to see somebody else's thoughts for now. Although we didn't get really much.
So, sorry, I'm bouncing around too, apparently. I love that you focused in on the horses being gone, because that's something I focused in too on my first read through, and I'm still upset about it.
Where are the horses? Don't
Rip
piss me
Cloud.
off.
We hardly knew ye.
I hate that. I hate that so much. Where the fuck is Bella? Don't play with me. Don't play with me right now.
You'll get an answer about Bella's fate.
I better.
You will. You won't even have to wait very long, I promise.
Good. Don't stress me out. I don't like it. Not you. Not you. I meant the book.
And this really was just 3 chapters of stressing us the fuck out.
Yeah. I'm on meds for this. Okay, I don't even remember.
I'm sorry, but Perrin falling into the water with his horse I felt that fall. Like, that's the sleep fall. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
and he swam the whole river that Rand couldn't even see across.
Yeah.
Now that is the thing that I found sexy as fuck in the chapter.
Yes. My man. It's giving Baywatch, actually.
Ooh.
Where is the shot of him soaked coming out of the river? I want it. I would like to see it.
Just tossing his curls from side to side.
Big ass fucking dude. Yeah. Give it to me.
Oh.
Actually. I have a mighty need. Yep. No, the thing with Tom throwing the knives, I gasped.
The gasp you gusped?
The gasp I gasped. The scream I scrumped. I literally stopped and I was like, this is the most attracted to him I've ever been. That's crazy. He wasn't even on my radar. And now I'm like, wow.
Like, we know that as a gleeman, he often travels alone. He has to be able to take care of himself, but he is clearly a knife fighter.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He's got skills.
Yeah, no. This hot as fuck. Yep. Do it again, actually.
You do that again, I missed it the first time.
Yeah, I was watering my television. Can you do it again?
So, you commented on this when you were doing your read through. Silent Trollocs.
Terrifying. No.
Right?
They have to make noise.
Paired with the fact that they are fast enough to keep up with galloping horses.
I hate it.
That's horrific.
Yeah. And are those like a particular band of Trollocs that can do that? It kill them all.
I mean, I suppose each half species has its specialties. I mean,
I guess so.
Right. That makes sense.
bird Trollocs might have hollower bones, and so they might be lighter on their feet, therefore sneakier. I don't know.
Yeah. A Trolloc with bird bones, and it jumps at you, and you just kind of go boop and swat it, and it flies away.
Birds aren't real. It's just swatted away.
Right. No, because even it's like a friend of mine has a massive macaw, like a big scarlet macaw, huge,
Huh.
huge fucking bird.
They are big birds.
He's like 4 pounds. It- he's just there. His hollow bones. You just gotta go tink and smack away a Trolloc. I wish, like a bug, like a fly swatter.
Using the flat of your sword to just kind of swat them away.
Yeah, just smack it. Love that. Love that idea.
More to add to our fan fiction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Swattable Trollocs.
You know, and I can't recall of all the different kinds of Trollocs that are mentioned, and maybe I'm just forgetting if one exists, but I don't remember there ever being any sort of cat-based Trollocs.
You'd have to catch a cat first that didn't want to be
True.
caught.
Like,
And I can
True,
right.
and I guarantee you, cat ain't gonna want to go near anybody who's even associated with the
Right.
dark.
Right, based
They know
only
better.
on my experience of trying to get my cats ready to go to the vet, they're not getting cats to make the Trollocs. It's not happening.
I mean, Lexi, I'm about to text you the name of someone that is specifically untrue about.
No, I know. You don't have to text me. I know exactly what you're talking about. I said it and then I remembered.
The party has been split now.
Or split the party.
Like dust on the wind. Bye bye.
Yep.
Now there's
We know for sure there are 3 groups. We've got Lan and Moraine together, as far as we know. We've got Matt and Tom and Rand together.
Right.
I wasn't say 3 groups. I'd say Perrin and Egwene, but they got separated in the fall, so we actually aren't together.
Yeah, so
But we do know that Perrin is there, so we're missing Egwene, we're missing Nynaeve.
Yep.
That's it, right?
Yep.
And Cloud. Not Cloud. Bella. Well, we're missing Cloud too, but we're missing Bella.
Yes. I miss Bella already. Don't do this to me.
One of the things I fucking love about this chapter, it has made me laugh every single time I've read it, is when they first split from Lan and Moraine and they start to like go, and then they come across the Trollocs and everybody's just staring at each other.
Yeah.
And even the Trollocs are frozen for a minute.
Like, hey.
And then it's just like, scatter!
Right.
It's giving very Scooby-Doo.
It's giving the Spider-Man meme.
That's exactly what I was going to say, is the Spider-Man pointing at each other. Hey! Or the Leo DiCaprio one.
Oh, yeah.
Wait a minute. Hold on.
Wait a minute. But yes, Scooby-Doo, because that would put the entire flea through Shadar Logoth into the funniest fucking light. As like a Scooby-Doo hallway gang.
Yeah, they're all like popping in and out of buildings and shit.
Yeah. Benny Hill is in the background.
And they crash into each other and like stop for a second, turn around, go the other way.
Right.
And then the Trollocs turn back around and chase them again.
Right. Benny Hill is playing. Yeah.
Benny Hill in the background.
This has a banger soundtrack in my head. This whole book. Yeah. I thought about the S&M thing as I was writing the summary. And I was like, that's funny. That's good. Yeah, I'm putting that in there.
I like that we see what I mentioned for the last chapter, more of Rand's observances. He's more watchful. He hears that sound and almost takes Matt's head off. More of Perrin's caution, where he literally sits there for, what is it, like 15 minutes, just deciding if he should walk out into like the square or whatever it is. I like that we're still seeing more of of those aspects in those two.
I would like to see Matt develop at all, to be quite honest.
Good fucking luck.
Yeah. He doesn't. I mean, he annoys me here again because, dude, shut the fuck up. Didn't Tom literally just tell you to let him do the talking? Why are you talking? Shut. Shut. But I would love to see him.
Oh
I
man.
would love to see his character change at all. If he doesn't, okay. But it would be nice.
The fact that Tom says, literally, we could have gotten passage for a song.
Right.
If you just
You
kept your
gave him
mouth
You
the
shut.
just
coins that
had to pull out silver.
yeah, you gave not only silver but the coins that Moiraine gave them. No. Wait a minute.
Those are not spendable.
Those are supposed to be really important.
I mean, clearly they are spendable because Bale took them. He weighed them. As far as he's concerned, they're true silver. That's all that matters. So they're spendable. You're just not supposed to spend them.
I mean,
They're spendable like a Sacagawea dollar is spendable. Or like a $2 bill is spendable. You technically can, but you don't.
Yeah. Right, or you shouldn't. But I don't think Maureen tells them not to spend it. Does she?
No,
tells
they
them
just
to keep it?
instinctively
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah, they just keep it because she says
Right.
like it's a promise essentially, that you'll come when I
Right, because
call.
the younger boy was gonna spend his, and they encourage him to do it, right?
Well, and he got a
While
different
at the
coin.
same time, instinctively, like, I shouldn't spend mine.
Yeah, he got a different coin than they did.
Yeah.
I think, but yeah, I was like, hey. But I mean, it's if it's for emergencies, this is kind of an emergency as far as they knew. And again, it's if Tom had told them what he wanted to do and what he was going to try to negotiate, then maybe they would have just let him do it. But maybe not, because he said, okay, if the sword is no, if you're going to keep the sword, then you're going to keep the sword. That's fine. I will throw you overboard, and they had no
Right.
reason to believe that he wouldn't.
Right, because they have no experience with the outside world.
Right, because they're bumpkins.
Yep, they are.
They don't know how to haggle or barter. So
You would think though that at the very least they would know how at least have like some experience with that. Going with their fathers or whatever to market and to
Well,
sales
I mean,
and things
Matt's
like
dad is
Right.
literally a horse trader, which is
right.
basically the equivalent of a used car salesman.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, it's all speculation. And Tam sells, brandy, but that implies that they were paying attention at all, and I don't think that they were.
You would think though that like I guess my point is because more often than not, I'm not saying in every case, more often than not, the boys are going to pick up their father's professions. You would think by that point, by their age, they're what, 20 years old, that they would already be learning and training to do that. So they would have some knowledge of that. But like these boys ain't got nothing in their fucking heads.
Well, and I mean, if their only frame of experience is trading within Emmons Field, within the two rivers where everybody knows everybody, then that also would probably change the terms of exchange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it seems like they don't have any experience at all, which is surprising given if they were expected. If Rand was going to inherit the farm, he would need to know how to run it. And he knows how to do that, but if he was going to take up the brandy thing, he would also need to know how to do that and how to get the value
Right.
of what it's worth. And if Matt's dad is a
Right.
horse trader, he would also need to know how to do that, especially because horses are unreliable. It's all, like I said, it's all speculative. It's
Right.
speculative value in horses. It's like being a land trader
Yep.
or any other, speculative whatever medium, like trading stocks, you know.
Right.
So you would think that they would know something, but they don't. But also, I mean, they did just run for their lives, and Rand almost died. He did very much
Again.
almost die. He was this close. He almost died, if not for the part of the fucking ship that came and knocked the trawler. He was like, surely there can't be any more luck for me after that, right? So maybe maybe they're just really rattled, which would make sense.
Yeah, maybe
So
He is shooketh.
yeah. Me too, girl. Mhm. And he's, and Rand is really focused on, he's focused on Egwene, it seems like, more than anything. But
Right,
also,
he's
the others. He's worried about everybody else because he hasn't seen them, so he doesn't know if the Trollocs got them or not.
right, but he feels responsible for Egwene.
Right.
So that's where his mind is at right now.
Yeah.
Can we talk about that little shit fuck that tried to swerm his way out of being punished by Bale and blaming Rand and shit?
Yeah.
He
Accusing of
like
being a death plant.
tried to offer Rand the shit.
Just don't kill me, sir. What?
And then the second Rand is distracted, he's gone.
Yeah.
So like, what a slimy little worm.
Yeah.
Lauren
Stares at the
Gelb.
sword covetously.
Gelb. What kind of fucking name is Gelb?
Right. No, again, very stressful, but
Yeah.
I liked it, and I
This chapter, while it has a lot of action, it also is like at the same time not a lot happens, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That can be like dissected and
Yeah,
dismissed. I
it
feel.
is pretty
Yeah,
straightforward.
yeah. If you had to sum up the chapter in 5 words or less, Trollocs are here.
Scatter.
Yeah, Trollocs are here. They run,
Yeah.
and
Oh
that's
look, more running.
Mhm.
More running.
All right. But yeah, no, the fog, terrifying. Just
Right.
fucking floating and waiting
Just
to strike.
because it's a predator.
Yes. Moraine said it
Like
may be stupid, but it can smell food. Oh no.
hey, that sounds like my dog.
That's Clark when I have turkey. Uh-huh. Yeah. My cat when I have turkey.
Yeah.
Or when he eats string cheese now too. So,
Pepper whenever there's any chance of dairy.
Yeah.
Pepper loves sour cream, and she loves whipped cream. So she thinks it's there. Also pickles. She'll come running. Loves them. So I get it.
I guess that makes it
But,
less
like,
scary then, I guess.
yeah.
If it's, I mean,
Oh my god, just bribing the fog with like a treat.
yeah, throwing it somewhere and watching it chase after
Like
it.
it's in an alleyway and you're like over here trying to get to the side of the alleyway so you can slip past it.
Right.
There's someone going out into the world into Randland as like a Steve Irwin type person for like the really dangerous creatures.
Yeah. Aw. There must be. There must be somebody who was like, I love this thing. I love this nameless, shapeless evil that only exists to consume living matter.
You're only doing what you were made to do.
Literally.
That
Literally, that's exactly what it would be, and it would be the Steve Irwin of Randland. I would love that. Where is that guy? Or girl? Where are they? That's what I want to know. That I want that story. What were you gonna say?
Oh, I was gonna make a joke about the title of this one being "Crying, Shaking, Throwing Up."
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know how many times it's been said, but like
TBH.
Yeah, because
it might have to be.
Yeah, it's terrifying. Oh yes, please do. I would love that.
Like it really encapsulates all 3 chapters.
It really does.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or even just like no thanks, because that's also all 3 chapters. Being chased by Trollocs over hill and dale, no thanks.
Yeah.
Following more death, no thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Bye. Chased by Mashinar.
silent
no
Trollocs,
thanks.
no thanks.
Yeah, the ambush Trollocs really got to me. Like, hey.
Trollocs.
You have
because
been
the only way that they know they're being
this whole time.
Yeah, the only way they know they're being chased is because they can hear them. What the fuck do you mean? The 3 of them showed up out of fucking nowhere. No.
How did they? I do not understand how they did not rustle leaves and branches and sticks.
Yeah,
I don't.
even they leaped without a sound. So if Rand hadn't noticed them, they would all be dead. That's no.
Which again brings us back around to Rand's observations improving.
Yes, it does.
It saved their damn lives for once. Actually, twice because he noticed the shadow too. This is another chapter that, like, in that section of them getting onto the boat and stuff, I would like a second point of view from Matt's point of view,
Yep.
because I want to know what the fuck he was thinking that he didn't realize they had set sail. We're already 10 miles downriver.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because even Rand makes note of that in his mind right away before, like, when they, get going.
Mm-hmm.
It's at least noted.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, I feel like sometimes if the boat is big enough, you forget that it's moving if you're not looking at the water going past. You know. But
That's another thing. That is another thing. I was thinking about this. Um, now to be fair, I have no experience with it myself, but you would think at least one of those boys would have gotten seasick.
I guess I hadn't thought about that, but maybe. I mean, it doesn't
I feel
seem.
like
Yeah.
I feel like one of them should have at least started to feel a little queasy.
Well, I mean, it is just a river. It's a big river, and the current is strong, and they're oaring in it. Um, but
Yeah, maybe they're not
yeah,
rocking a whole bunch.
yeah, I don't know.
But
Possibly.
it's something that crossed my mind this time while you were reading your chapter summary.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why isn't one of them almost immediately seasick? Because as far as I know, that's kind of how it goes.
Yeah.
It's like,
That,
once you start rolling, you start rolling.
yeah. And keep your eyes on the horizon. That would be such a funny character note. Like if you did character biographies of all of them, and one of the notes is just gets motion sickness.
Motion sickness.
Like, well, yeah, okay.
Well, there's um have you guys ever read anything by Tamara Pierce? The
Yes,
Alana series.
yes,
Alana gets seasick.
yes.
And she's not only like she's a horsewoman because she's a knight, but she's a healer. Like
Mhm.
naturally, her power is healing, and she gets seasick to no end.
Mhm.
And it's one of the funniest things. I'm not actually a fan of that particular series or character, but like everything that comes after Alana, I know by heart, and I have everything
Mhm.
in physical and audiobook copies because Tamara Pierce is my favorite author. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's just really funny that like, oh, seasick, this super famous female knight who has literally gone to the top of the world to get the super famous mythical gem gets seasick.
Yeah,
Anything else on this chapter?
I've said all I had to say in the
Yeah.
summary. So,
Yeah, again, not much to do. Where's Bella? Where's Cloud?
Tom, maybe throw knives at me next. I don't know if you want. Maybe on Thursday when I'm free. On Thursday next time.
All right, so next episode we've got 21, 22, 23,
Correct.
which are going to give us some answers, hopefully,
Hopefully,
on who, if anyone, survived.
yeah. Well, yeah, because now I mean everybody's now we've got what had been one party is now like four or five. You know,
Right.
if there's
As
yeah,
far as we know, Lan and Moraine,
mhm,
we can assume they're alive because they are who they are,
right,
right? And still together.
yeah,
We know Tom, Matt, and Perrin. So
Rand,
that's two parties. Yeah, sorry. Um,
mhm.
Tom, Matt, and Rand. That's two parties right there. We know Perrin's alive if drenched. Um,
And that leaves Egwene and then Nynaeve. Yeah,
yeah.
so five.
So,
There's five different places we could be now, because it would
right,
be I would be disappointed if it just like we just went through one person, like if we just went through Rand until they all reunited. I would be disappointed in that. It doesn't seem like it's where it's going, especially now that a POV shift has happened. But
right,
I would be disappointed because it would be such an interesting or like a fun opportunity to show the internal worlds of all these characters because they're all so
right.
interesting. They're
Uh
also
huh.
multidimensional already, even though we mostly get like 99.9999% Rand's perspective on things. They're all interesting.
Right,
So I would love personally to see more of those POV switches or at least what's going on with everybody else because now that they've all scattered.
right.
So I will be interested to see. And of course, you're right. If Bella is okay and alive. If she's not, I might have to throw hands or knives.
Will you just quit completely
No.
and just not finish?
Podcast over.
Podcast over.
Nope, we're done. That's it. I don't need to know anything else. No, but I might get into knife throwing.
At least a table flip, right?
Correct. Absolutely. I will flip a lot of tables.
Excellent. All right. Well, I think that's everything for today then.
And it's been quite a lot.
Oh my
Yes,
god, I know.
this is going to be another. This is going to be a big
episode.
Yay!
Yep. Alrighty, well, thank you to everyone for listening to another jam-packed episode. We will see you all next time.
Bye!
Thanks, bye. Thank you for listening to Easing the Badger. If you want to keep reading along with us, please make sure you subscribe to our show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere else you find podcasts. Make sure you leave us a 5-star rating and a review where possible. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky at EasingBadgerPod, and send us an email at easingthebadgerpod@gmail.com. Our link tree will be in the show notes. Theme music is Magic Tavern by Alexander Nakarada.